y'all. So I've talked a lot in my videos about the theory of anthropology. Basically, the prime directive of anthropology. Why are we doing anthropology? And, you know, that stuff's very important. But this video is going to be all about methodology. Now, what is methodology? Well, it's basically a fancy way of saying how anthropologists actually do anthropology. And I'm part of a group through my university where we're experimenting with different ways to do anthropology by talking about it, but also by going out and doing it. What the group really wanted to experiment with this semester was walking as a methodology. You know, walking with other people, having conversations with them, letting your environment be part of your research. Unfortunately, due to the current red alert in Montreal, it's not really safe for large groups of people to gather and be close up together, getting all their mouth germs on each other. Of course, as I'm scrolling through Montreal, I run into a beautiful church, because what else are you gonna do in Montreal but just walk places, and there's giant beautiful churches there. So because of that, and because part of anthropology is thinking on your feet, we decided as a group instead that we're all going to walk around the same area and try to soak it all in and have our own little experiences with it. Hello, Mr. Seagull. What are you up to? What are you doing? Typically, if you were going to do a walk like this, you'd have another person to chat with and some sort of research topic in mind that would steer your conversations. I had neither of those things. Just a path to walk and time to think. I started off at De Castelnau Metro and followed the path until I ended up at Park Metro. While recording footage for this video, I limited myself to taking 15 and 30-second clips. And when I recorded, I also tried not to take consecutive shots. This is partially because I worried that I'd be so focused on recording my surroundings that I wouldn't actually observe my surroundings, and partially because I wanted to keep pieces of this walk just for me. Very scientific of me, I know. So, what did I learn from all of this? As I began to make my way along the path, I didn't know exactly what I would find. I had never been to this area before. In fact, one of the other members of the group had been the one to map it out for us, and I had specifically not Googled the area before going. I wanted to try and preserve my first impressions of everything. For some reason, that felt important to the exercise. And because this was Montreal, I was ready for just about anything. In Montreal, there's weird and interesting stuff around every corner. It's not really limited to any one area. So you can be walking through a neighborhood and bam, there's a cool statue, or bam, there's some weird eccentric business. But as I kept looking at everything around me, trying to make sure I didn't miss anything important, I felt a bit overwhelmed about what to pay attention to. Should I look at the leaves on the ground, which signaled that it was fall already? Should I count the cars driving past? Or take note of the squirrels and ducks as they scurried along, unaware or uninterested in the strange girl that was filming them? It all seemed important and trivial at the same time. I've spoken in the past on my channel about imposter syndrome. This secret fear that everyone else besides me knows what they're doing, and one day they'll find out that I've been an imposter this whole time, and that I've been trying to murder everyone too. Sometimes I think anthropology as a discipline has imposter syndrome. Y'all wouldn't know, but my colleagues and I spend a lot of time during discussions and seminars talking about what it means to do anthropology. Anytime a different method is brought up, there are long talks about if it's a valid technique, if it'll be useful for acquiring data, if it's scientific enough. Now, to a certain extent, these conversations are important. If there's no quality control, then things can get really silly really fast. But sometimes, the constant discussions about why someone is using a certain method almost feel more like justification than explanation. Like an anthropologist is afraid that they'll get their membership card revoked if they don't convince people well enough. Sometimes that's what anthropology feels like to me. Like grasping at sand and holding it up to say, look, I found something, while the grains continue slipping through your fingers. When I looked around that day, I kept searching for what meaning I was supposed to find in this exercise. What purpose did it serve? But my mind did drift quite a bit during that beautiful autumn day. I thought a lot about how different everything was from the life I left behind in the US. Being an American living in Canada is hard to describe. Most things are similar enough, but other little reminders slip through. Like the nip I felt in the air, a reminder of the fast approaching winter. Or the beautiful red brick homes which colored the area instead of the limestone of my childhood. Or the bilingualism on display that alerted me to the constant presence of Montreal construction. And while that can be annoying, it reminds me of how Montreal is a city constantly changing and growing and becoming something new. There's something terribly nostalgic about the changing of the leaves. As I feel them crunch under my feet, I can't stop thinking about how different this walk would have been if I wasn't alone. What comments I would make to my best friend, with all our little inside jokes and personal anecdotes. Or the pastries I would recommend to my parents, chocolatines or tarte au sucres, that are wonderful, but don't hold the same nostalgic flavor as kolaches or polverons. Or the details of the city that I would point out to someone who was new to the area. Did I count as new to the area? I've lived in Montreal now for 2 years, 26 months if you want to get specific. Could I call this place home? In many ways it feels like home to me. I've lived here long enough to reminisce about the wonder I had the first time I saw the city painted with golds, reds, and oranges as the heat of the summer became a memory. Could I call myself a Montrealer? What did it even mean to be a Montrealer? In my own thesis, I've been thinking a lot about boundaries, binaries, and what we call ourselves. How there's a lot of cultural concepts that humans often think have these strict categories. Gay or straight, online or offline, a community member, or an outsider. These are all ideas that I've been looking at when studying my own research data. And there's so much nuance to these topics. So much so that sometimes trying to make a point about them feels like pointing at the night sky and saying, "Oh, look, there's a crab. You definitely see a crab there, right? Yeah. It's a crab." A common joke anthropologists make about each other is how we're so bad at explaining things that we can't do it without constantly relying on metaphor, and I think there is some truth to that. So back to the reason I had been taking this walk in the first place. This was supposed to be an exercise in how walking could be a research method for anthropologists. So I have to ask myself, is any of this useful or helpful? Someone who watches this might think what I'm doing is dumb or pretentious. And maybe it is, and maybe I'm grasping for meaning, trying to make myself look smarter than I am. Maybe that's what any anthropologist is doing, trying to attach meaning to nothing. Maybe at the end of the day, we're all just bullshit manufacturers. But when I think back to what I like about anthropology, and I think back to all the walks I've taken with other people before, there's one idea that I can't push away. That sometimes in life, there are moments, a glimpse of human connection, where I feel like I can truly understand someone outside of myself. And in that moment, it doesn't feel like bullshit I'm making up, it feels real. And maybe that's why I'm still here. I think that's all I have to say for now. Leave a comment below telling me how pretentious you think this sounded, and I'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.